All right, guys, welcome to this page of the notes. And what we're going to do here is talk about that second objective, which is consecutive integers. Here's what's going to happen. In the previous problems we have graphed so far, we always wound up with a 0 in the y column, right? Whenever y is equal to 0, you know that you cross the x-axis. And so we wound up with these really nice, neat answers, these nice, neat solutions. That's rare. For most quadratics, that's not going to happen. You won't wind up with a 0 in the y column. So what do we do in those cases? Well, that's where these consecutive integers come in. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. I'll explain it to you, and then we'll try a couple. A few things for you to highlight here just so that you've got them in your notes, and it's this. Often, exact roots cannot be found by graphing. In fact, most of the time, exact roots cannot be found by graphing. We're going to need to do something else. What do? We call it consecutive integers. When the values of a function is positive for one value and negative for a second value, then there's at least one 0 between those two values. Say, what? Yeah, I know, it's a little wordy and kind of confusing, so let me show you, right? We all understand visuals a lot better. Let's take a look at this. I will come back to this table in just a second, but what I've done is I've taken all of the values from this table and I've graphed them for you. Let me show you the graph. There it is. All of the values in that table I have graphed for you guys right here. Now, what you'll notice, right, is that when I connect all of these dots with my line, right, what happens is that my line, my graph, crosses the x-axis between -2 and -1. I don't know exactly what that value is. In fact, I actually don't care. I've asked you for consecutive integers. So what is the exact solution? It doesn't matter. I'm not asking you for the exact solution. I'm asking you for the integers between which I will find my solution. Well, since my line, my graph, crosses the x-axis between -2 and -1, that's what represents, hopefully you guys can see the yellow, that's what represents my consecutive integers. I know that my answer, my solution, x, is somewhere between -2 and -1, right? It's somewhere inside that box. What is it exactly? It actually doesn't matter because I didn't ask you for the exact solution. I asked you for the consecutive integers, and this is good enough. On the other side, notice that my line crosses the x-axis somewhere between 0 and +1. What is the exact solution? Again, it doesn't matter. I didn't ask you for the exact solution. I asked you for the consecutive integers between which I could find my exact solution. Since the line, my graph, crosses somewhere between x equals 0 and x equals 1, it's somewhere inside this box, that means that my consecutive integers are 0 and 1. My value of x is somewhere less than 1, but greater than 0. And what I've got here is, instead of finding roots, I have found consecutive integers. I know that my solutions are somewhere between -2 and -1, and somewhere between 0 and 1. Now let me show you how you're going to do this when you are doing these problems and you've got your XY table, which is exactly what these is. Remember, f of x is just a fancy way of saying y. So what you've got here is an XY table. Here's what you're looking for. What you're looking for, since I don't get any zeros in my y column, well, a row in this case since my table is out horizontally, since I don't have any zeros in my y row, what I'm going to look for are consecutive integers. And here's how you're going to do it. You know that you must cross the x-axis, right? You have to cross that x-axis if your y value goes from either being negative to all of the sudden being positive, right? The only way you go from a negative number on the y-axis to a positive number is if you cross the x-axis. Or vice versa, the other direction, right? The only way you go from being a positive y value to a negative y value is if you cross the x-axis. So what you're looking for in this y row is you're looking for a change in sign. Please notice that right here, I went from being a positive 3 to now being a negative 6. Again, the only way that I can go from being a positive number, a positive y value, to a negative y value is if I cross the x-axis. Somewhere between these guys, I cross the x-axis. Right? I cross somewhere. Well, what values of x, right, am I crossing between? Well, my values of x are -2 and -1. So I'm somewhere greater than -2 and somewhere less than a -1, right? It's based on your x values. Well, once again, let's keep going. Please notice that I am negative. It's a -2. All of a sudden, I now go to a positive 4. Again, the only way I can go from being a negative number to being a positive number is if I cross the x-axis. That means somewhere in here, I must have crossed the x-axis. Well, all I can do is give you consecutive integers, which in this case would be somewhere less than 1 and greater than 0. Again, the way this is going to work is you set up your table. If you don't have zeros in the y column, you'll be looking for consecutive integers, and we'll go ahead and give this some practice on the next page of the notes. So head on over, I'll meet you guys there.